So, when I was 13 years old, The Dark Knight by Christopher Nolan came out on DVD, and I watched it at my friend's house on some 15-inch color tube television, and the scene when the truck flips just blew my mind. It was just awe-inspiring, and I was absolutely taken aback by it. And ever since that moment, whenever a movie comes out by Christopher Nolan, I eagerly anticipate it. Now we have Tenet coming out, and oh my god, does it look awesome. But it's having quite a bit of issues. Now, the most obvious one is that every time it wants to be released, they have to push the release date due to the coronavirus situation and the effect on movie theaters. But that's actually not the only problem the movie's been having. Since its development, internally, there's been some issues that have been getting in the way, and now externally with the coronavirus, there's that major issue as well. But today we're going to delve into each of the internal issues that affected the film, as well as the external issue of the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. And let's shed some light on it and get some background as to how this movie has been made and what its future could very well be. Okay, so internal problems, rapid fire. Hans Zimmer, his favorite collaborator for music, unfortunately wasn't available. He was on Dune. His editor was working on 1917, I believe. The logo Tenet, the palindrome that is Tenet, the way the logo was designed initially apparently was exactly the same way a bike company had it set up, and now they can't even use it in further marketing. Internally, now lenses, because I work with lenses on movies and commercials and stuff like that, I got in the way of this film. I'm gonna give you a little bit of a background. Check out this. Okay, so this here is a departures and arrivals overview of Panavision. So Panavision is a company that does lenses and movie cameras for high-end movies, commercials, shows, stuff like that. They're a great company. And here, you may notice that these are the rooms. These are the ones typically for movies, but they could be commercials and stuff like that. First one there, Merry-Go-Round. You might recognize Merry-Go-Round as the working title for Tenet. So a lot of big movies, for example, like Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was called Magnum Opus when it was up here. They don't put the real names because typically they don't want people to be snooping around, stuff like that. So Merry-Go-Round was the name for Tenet. And the thing about the rooms is you have the rooms and then you have the test stage. The test stage is the largest room. It's a 70 by 30. That week I was using room number 2 and I was using the test stage for production I was doing. And the test stage, I was just taking a break. I went to room number 2. And when I was hanging out at room number 2, I noticed next door, Merry-Go-Round was prepping Tenet. And I just had to go in. Okay, now I'm going to let you guys know that I'm not going to use any names of people involved. I'm also not going to talk about story points here because I didn't hear any. This is not about the story of Tenet. That stuff is locked down. But this is just about the experience I had, and I can tell you a little bit about some additional hurdles the film was having. First of all, I could have given Christopher Nolan the soundstage. I didn't know. I didn't even know. They booked it that way. Maybe he didn't even want it. I don't care. But the point is I feel bad because he should have had it. He's a brilliant guy. Point being, I go in and I see the IMAX camera and I'm like, oh my God, X, Y, and Z, your name. Is that Chris's camera? Because that looks like an IMAX 400 foot and it's modified the way that he does it. And he didn't say anything, which I took, that's Christopher Nolan's camera. And I just was like, hey, can I see you load it up? Can I see this thing in action? He was saying supposedly there was only 5 of them in the world. That particular model of IMAX, the way it was made. And then he just got the thing going. It sounded like a lawnmower. Because as you might know, IMAX cameras, you've heard the term in advertising, they're these huge film cameras that run this silver film through it, and it's enormous, and it just sounds like a lawnmower. It's like I don't know how they do dialogue scenes. No wonder they do it on 65. And I'm watching it, and then something else happens. Situation develops. The people that were shooting the Bond film, I don't know what it was called at the time, but the Bond film that has, what's the girl's name? Billie Eilish doing the theme. They took the lenses from Christopher Nolan. They booked them before, and those lenses were on the Bond film. And Christopher Nolan wanted a 40 millimeter on his film. So it turned into this whole argument where it's like, why can't I have the lenses? We're going to go into principal photography sooner than Bond is, or something like that. I forgot exactly how it went. And the reason why they're fighting over lenses, I want to let you know that. So IMAX cameras are very specific. There's very few in the world. Digital cameras, like our phones, like Canon cameras, stuff like that, those use digital sensors. They're very small imaging areas, but IMAX is huge. The bigger the imaging area, the more of a lens you need that can shed light and cover that entire imaging area. I'll show you on paper. Okay, so not to get sidetracked, but the issue with the IMAX film cameras and the IMAX lenses and why Christopher Nolan was fighting over it is this. This is a frame of IMAX film. It's a projection frame. This is printed, and it is 15 perforations across, super tall. The imaging area is enormous. So that's a lot of millimeters. This right here is an example of a 35 millimeter frame. That means the diagonal across this frame is something around 35 millimeters. Now here, you get a lens that just needs to cover 35 millimeters of light. Now this is an optics thing. Now with this, how do you get from this light circle to cover that? What you need is a special lens made by IMAX. But here's the problem. IMAX doesn't have that many of them because they're huge. Okay, so that was just a glimpse into some of the internal issues. That wasn't even close to all of them, but that's just a glimpse of the kind of things that as a filmmaker you have to get through. And Christopher Nolan went through a whole lot, and that's why him and his producers and everyone was just so committed to get this thing made. And it's just amazing how he does that. And he sticks to his guns, and I love that. That's just such integrity. So now let's talk about IMAX and theatrical distribution and the coronavirus. The coronavirus is a horrible, ongoing pandemic that we're experiencing right now, and it's forced the closures of many institutions, movie theaters included. And Christopher Nolan insists that you see this movie in theaters. Now, other movies that just care about making money as their number one goal, and they don't really care about changing the human condition for the better and things like that, they will sell it digitally. I mean, we just saw that with Trolls World Tour. They released the movie digitally. It made a ton of money. It ruined relationships with movie studios, or movie theaters, but the studios didn't care because, I mean, at the end of the day, the distribution's a distribution. But that's not Christopher Nolan. He wants you to see it in person. Now, I know I said that on a 15-inch screen, I was able to be moved by Christopher Nolan, but you just gotta see this thing on the big screen. And let me talk to you a little bit about what it means to see that movie in IMAX. Truly know what it means to see it in IMAX, and I'm gonna pull up some IMAX frames for you. This is a digital camera. Your phone, cinema cameras, they all have sensors that take in light and convert it into digital signal. This are film projection prints. Now, film is a chemical process. You're taking in on silver nitrate crystals, you're taking in the light and changing the molecular structure. Now, this is awesome. The reason why is once it's printed and played back through an arc lamp or a projection lamp or whatever you're using, you are watching a chemical process. You are watching you're watching real chemistry come to play. Now, I know on the atomic level you could say it's the same exact thing, but truly it's an engaging process. And when you watch this, when you watch stuff shot on IMAX, blown up, it's amazing. Now let me explain. This is what we're used to, 35 film scope. This is what we used to watch in theaters before digital theaters started taking over in 2010. That is what we used to know. This is from Interstellar. This is using the 15 perfs of IMAX film horizontally. You're only using about, I don't know how many perfs that is. But the point is he's using more area, so it's way larger than what we're used to. And then this is IMAX. This is IMAX. This is 70 millimeter across, 15 perforations. It's amazing. My point is, you watch this, the sheer scale and the way of how special it is to see a chemical process come together is just absolutely insane. It's a chemistry experiment we're watching, people. So we talked about distribution, and I'm going to tell you this. I'm sure Christopher Nolan is hearing it out the ear about how the coronavirus situation is affecting movie theaters and how they did projections, and then if they did a digital transactional video on demand release that, it's going to make way more money. But Christopher Nolan wants you to see it this way. It's not so much for selfish pleasure so much, and I don't consider him a megalomaniac based off of what we've seen of him, but it's because he wants you to get the best theatrical experience. Let's talk about some of the things that are affecting the film. The break-even point. The hard production cost is estimated to be $250 million from speculation, and they expect, based off of old Hollywood rules for distribution, that the actual distribution cost is around another $200 million. The break-even point is expected to be $450 million just before it starts making its money back. Now that is quite a feat. Like Christopher Nolan in a non-COVID world easily could have done it. I bet this movie was probably projected to do 1.4 billion. But now it's all scary because theatrical distribution is the business model in which making money in movies is foundational. It's what it's expected to be. So he's sticking to his guns and he's trying to release it in theaters on August 12th as of current. And we'll see how it goes. I really wish him the best. He has all these things against him, but my goodness, if anyone could do it, it's gonna be Christopher Nolan and his team because they are so committed, and I really hope he does. And the reason why I do is because out there, some 13-year-old kid is gonna be watching it, and he's going to see some stunt, because I just know this is gonna be the best action film he has ever done. And he's going to be moved on such an intense level by that story, and I think it'll all be worth it. All the same, stay safe, stay inspired, keep telling stories, people.